I believe I can make it over the garden wall.
You want me to lift you over the wall so you may escape?
That is what I said, yes.
There's some potentially exciting news that will definitely get Bridgerton fans buzzing. While we're all still counting down the days until the release of Bridgerton Season 4, which has officially wrapped filming and should be hitting Netflix sometime next year, there's also fresh word about the franchise's beloved spin-off, Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story. And this time, the news doesn't come from rumor or speculation, but straight from one of the stars themselves. Now, Netflix hasn't officially confirmed that Queen Charlotte will be back for a second season. The prequel was originally marketed as a limited series, meaning it was supposed to be a one-and-done story. But in a recent interview, Bridgerton star Adjoa Andoh, who plays the iconic Lady Danbury, dropped a little hint that a second season might already be in the works. And because this show has always been such a fan favorite, the idea of more episodes is the kind of thing that makes fans' wish lists suddenly feel within reach. So what exactly does that mean? According to Deadline, Andoh is expected to reprise her role as Lady Danbury if Queen Charlotte Season 2 happens. That's already a promising sign because she's been a fan favorite character both in Bridgerton and in the prequel. The report didn't give too many specifics beyond that. No filming dates, no additional casting announcements, nothing that would count as an official renewal from Netflix. But honestly, given how big of a hit Queen Charlotte was when it first came out, bringing it back seems like the most obvious decision in the world. To put things in perspective, when the series dropped in May 2023, it made a massive splash. In its first week alone, the 6-episode drama racked up nearly 150 million viewing hours, and in its second week, that number climbed even higher to almost 160 million. That was before Netflix switched its reporting metric from hours viewed to just total views. But even with the older measurement, it's easy to see just how much audiences loved it. On top of being a ratings powerhouse, Queen Charlotte also scored an impressive 95% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which shows that critics were just as charmed as fans. Because of those numbers, Queen Charlotte didn't just feel like a one-off, it became one of Netflix's most-watched English-language shows of all time. Even though it eventually got bumped off that particular list earlier this year, the fact that it earned a spot in the first place proves its lasting impact. So if a second season really is on its way, there's a good chance it could climb right back up into the ratings. The only catch is timing. Since nothing has been formally announced and filming hasn't started yet, we'd probably be looking at a release that happens long after Bridgerton Season 4 is out. But let's back up a bit and talk about what made Queen Charlotte such a strong addition to the Bridgerton world in the first place. At its core, the series followed two timelines. The first focused on the past, telling the love story of a young Queen Charlotte and her husband, King George III, played brilliantly by India Amartefio and Corey Milcreast. Their romance wasn't just about passion, it also explored the struggles, sacrifices, and vulnerabilities that shaped their future together. The second timeline jumped forward, showing the older versions of Charlotte, Lady Danbury, and Violet Bridgerton as they navigated the challenges of the present day. This dual structure allowed the series to expand on familiar characters while also creating something completely new. That balance between old and new is part of why fans have been asking for more, and it's not just Queen Charlotte that's thriving. Earlier this year, Bridgerton itself was renewed for seasons 5 and 6, meaning Netflix is committed to adapting all 8 of Julia Quinn's novels. So with the main series continuing strong, it only makes sense that spin-offs like Queen Charlotte might keep popping up too. Of course, not everyone is convinced that Queen Charlotte needs another season. After all, Bridgerton is mapped out to cover 8 full seasons, but Queen Charlotte doesn't have that same foundation since it's not based directly on Julia Quinn's books. Instead, it was an original creation by Shonda Rhimes, inspired by real historical figures but fictionalized for dramatic effect. And because there aren't official sequel novels to adapt, the future of the series depends entirely on whether the writers and producers feel there's still more story worth telling. Shonda Rhimes herself has been a little cautious about this. In past interviews, she's admitted she doesn't want to tell a story that doesn't need to be told. That comment gave some fans pause, especially since Season 3 of Bridgerton wrapped up a few of Queen Charlotte's dangling plot threads. For example, the complicated dynamic between Lady Danbury and Violet Bridgerton finally got some closure. Their storyline, which tied back to Lady Danbury's past affair with Violet's father, had been left open-ended at the close of Queen Charlotte. But in Bridgerton Season 3, we see Violet and Agatha finally acknowledge the past, forgive each other, and move forward. That resolution makes it less likely that Queen Charlotte would need to revisit the storyline. Although that may sound like the end of the road, there's still one major reason why Queen Charlotte Season 2 makes sense: King George. His arc in the prequel was deeply emotional, showing not just his love for Charlotte, but also his struggle with mental health and the brutal ways society and the royal court tried to fix him. The first season ended with him stepping into his role as king, but his long-term story remains largely untold. And because Bridgerton itself doesn't spend much time on George, he's mentioned only briefly, if at all, viewers are left with a bunch of unanswered questions. This is why continuing Queen Charlotte feels like such a natural move. George's journey is far from over, and fans deserve to see how his relationship with Charlotte evolves as his illness progresses. Even though the main Bridgerton series doesn't spotlight him, the prequel gave us such a vivid and heartbreaking look at his character that leaving it there almost feels incomplete. So if Season 2 happens, George would almost certainly be at the heart of it. Plus, there's another layer to think about. In Bridgerton Season 3, George didn't even appear. Not a cameo, not even a mention. That absence only makes it clearer that if we want closure for him, it has to come through Queen Charlotte. And that actually sets up the spin-off perfectly. It has a reason to exist that doesn't compete with the main series, but instead complements it. Meanwhile, Bridgerton Season 4 is already shaping up to deliver a bunch of fresh drama. Showrunner Jess Brownell has teased that Anthony and Kate will return, this time exploring their marriage and new roles as parents. Penelope's story is also getting more complicated now that Queen Charlotte knows she's Lady Whistledown, which could completely shift their relationship. And then there's Eloise, who's still resisting marriage even as her younger sister Hyacinth is eager to debut. That mix of storylines proves the franchise still has plenty of fuel, and it also opens the door for Queen Charlotte to keep tackling different corners of the Bridgerton universe without stepping on anyone's toes. So where does that leave us? On one hand, Queen Charlotte Season 2 hasn't been confirmed yet, and Shonda Rhimes has been clear she doesn't want to force it. On the other hand, Adjoa and Andoh's comments and the unresolved arc of King George strongly suggest there's still more to explore. Because the first season proved to be such a hit with both fans and critics, the potential payoff for continuing the story feels too big to ignore. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.